I have been asked to present here this Module 1 for the Guideline of Good Pharmacovigilance Practices, GVPs, and I'm very lucky to have many colleagues who have been participated preparing these modules and who are able to address your questions and comments after this presentation. Next slides, please. This module contains guidance for the establishment and maintenance of the quality-assured pharmacovigilance systems for the marketing authorization holders, competent authorities, and the agency. And in this module, you can find general application of quality management to pharmacovigilance systems and also requirements specific to the operation of EU network. Next one. In the next two slides, you can see the main topics from the structures and processes of the Module 1. I will pick up some of these topics today as highlights. The first bullet point covering overall quality objectives, which includes in the module compliance with the regulatory requirements, prevention of harm from adverse reactions, promotion of safe and effective use of medicinal products, and contribution to the protection of patients and public health. The second bullet point is about the principles for good pharmacovigilance practices and introduce and this includes the higher management, leadership and personal involvement and support to the pharmacovigilance system, continuous improvement, resourcing and organization of the task to support the conduct of pharmacovigilance, use of all available evidence for the decision-making of the risk-benefit balance of medicinal products. It also contains the cooperation between different parties, including marketing authorization holders, healthcare professionals, competent authorities, patients, and public health organizations, to mention some of them. And this all is done so that the needs in relation to the safety of medicines can be met. Next one. And here I would like to highlight the second and third bullet points. So this guidance also identifies critical pharmacovigilance processes, and these are activities which are related to continuous safety profile monitoring, risk management systems and risk minimization, individual case safety reports, signals, periodic safety update reports, commitments and responses to competent authorities, interaction between pharmacovigilance and product defects, communication about safety concerns, product information, and safety-related variations to marketing authorization. So this is not practically nothing very new to all of us dealing with the pharmacovigilance area. And about the mechanisms for monitoring performance and effectiveness of the pharmacovigilance system and its quality system, this guideline includes the following items. System reviews by responsible management, risk-based audits, compliance monitoring, inspections performed by competent authorities, and evaluation of the actions taken with medicinal products. Next one. And when it comes to the operation of the EU network, for the applicant or the marketing authorization holder, the guidance describes pharmacovigilance responsibilities in EU. The marketing authorization holder has responsibilities in relation to the QPPV, meaning that the marketing authorization holder have to ensure that the QPPV has sufficient authority to influence the performance of the pharmacovigilance activities and the quality system. The authority over the pharmacovigilance system should allow the QPPV to implement changes to the system and to provide input into the risk management plans and into the preparation of regulatory action in response to emerging safety concerns. Overall, the marketing authorization holder should ensure that structures and processes are in place so that the QPPV can fulfill the responsibilities which are set to this task. The guidance also describes the qualifications of the QPPV and the role of this person as a part of this pharmacovigilance system. So as a conclusion, the QPPV has oversight over the functioning of the system in all relevant aspects, including its quality. The next one. And then is the part related to the operation of EU network and the regulatory network, and I don't intend to jump into details on this slide. This is just to note that the guidance also describes the operations of a EU regulatory network and the roles of the different players in that arena, including the competent authorities in the Member States, European Commission and European Medicines Agency, and all the committees included. The next one. What I would like to emphasize here that the quality system is part of the pharmacovigilance system. Quality system and pharmacovigilance system are not separate systems running parallel in the organization. And the objective is to produce visibly good pharmacovigilance and to contribute public health, overall confidence and public trust. Next one. This is my final slide, and I would like to encourage you to fully use the opportunity to comment and give feedback in the published GVP module through the public consultation. We very much like to hear your comments, concerns and proposals regarding the content of this module and the clarity of the guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that very concise overview, Suvi. And as you've said, the quality system is integral to pharmacovigilance. It's not an add-on or a separate area, it's integral. So this is an introduction to the GVP Module 1, and you've highlighted that there is certainly time for comment till the 18th of April, but in the true spirit of this meeting, the sooner we start to get those comments flowing and being aired, those that are involved and working in the project team can start to get to grips with them. So comments and questions for Suvi. Thank you. It's AESGP again.
Thank you. No, thanks for this document, which is really detailed and well written, which shows the work which has been going on into it. However, from the perspective of a smaller and medium-sized companies, we're very much afraid that they may not have the capabilities to fully implement such a system. And we also fear that this may be to the detriment of really for them to focus on the essential pharmacovigilance activities. So I think it's critical that the right balance be struck in that document, bearing in mind the limited resources of SMEs. Thank you.
Well, that's an interesting and important point about the capabilities of small and medium-sized companies. And your worry is that there would be a diversion of focus away from essential pharmacovigilance onto quality per se. Suvi, would you like to offer your views on that?
As a short comment, I would say that the pharmacovigilance activities are the main focus, but we need to have some elements to support to have the outcome what we have set out to our pharmacovigilance systems. So we need very carefully evaluate the balance between the quality system requirements and the pharmacovigilance system to have the best outcome what we can have out of it.
So you're recognising the concerns, but you're looking to a balanced approach. And I can see Fergus Sweeney. Is there anything you would like to say, Fergus, particularly from the EMA perspective? Introduce as you're the head of the inspectorate here.
I think, well, I suppose in this context, I'm Suvi's co-chair also of the project team. I recognise the concern that is raised, but what I think we have to consider, and those perhaps who have experience with quality systems, is that these are very scalable to different sizes of organisations, and that is something that where wide experience exists already both within the industry and in other industries that also use quality system standards, and from very small companies of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people up to large multinationals. So I think really it's ensuring that within an organization you've taken the appropriate steps to have a controlled quality system for your pharmacovigilance activities, which are appropriate to the scale of your operations. But fundamentally, it is appropriate to have a good system for pharmacovigilance and attributes of that which are supporting the quality of that pharmacovigilance, because the consequences of poor quality pharmacovigilance are, well, it's like you outlined in your opening address, the impact on public health, it can be very considerable.
Fergus, would you go as far as to say that actually for a small and medium-sized company it can be particularly important to have the quality system? Perhaps I'm overstating it a little.
I think it's very important as any level of company, but perhaps for those setting out on the path of their first medicinal product, it's very important to have a clear vision of how you are working to implement the different aspects of the legislation, which once you become a marketing authorization holder, you have a responsibility to assure. And you will have quality system aspects in your manufacturing. You will have had already in your clinical trials and other areas. And I think this is the two key things post-authorization are to get your manufacturing right and to get your pharmacovigilance right. Unless you've new developments and line extensions, those are the pillars of the good use of the product.
Sure. Well, thank you for those comments, and I'm sure that's something that people will be reflecting on carefully during consultation. We had questions on this side. It was Barbara first, and then Albert. Thank you.
My comment might come in the wrong context, but I think it's very, very fine that all this quality work is being done. My hope is that we can spend as much time on how to get physicians and other healthcare professionals and patients to report, because that is really the weak part of the chain. I hope we will discuss this later on quite in detail, because I think countries have different experiences how to keep this going. I can see in the countries I know best that there is a gross underreporting, and what kind of sources can we use to find information which is not reported by professionals and so on. But it's maybe the wrong place to come with this comment.
I think it's a good place to come with it, and it's certainly something that I think round the EU network people are increasingly thinking hard how they can tackle the issue of encouraging health professionals and patients to report. And indeed, the introduction of this legislation gives us an incredibly good opportunity to educate and re-educate as we extend the scope of the adverse drug reaction, we look at medication error and so forth. So let's return to that very important topic. Albert, please.
Maybe this is additional to the remark of Barbara. I thought about the following, and that's regarding communication. For in one of the last slides, I saw that the aims of these activities were, and this included improving public health and building trust in society. But if you want to build trust in society, society at least has to understand that it's about them. So the question is, and this is not critic per se to be critical, but the question is, in the communication, how can we make clear to the people that this is about them? So is there a translation possible from this very technical discussions to what does this mean for clinical practice, where doctors and patients meet each other to find solutions for healthcare problems? For otherwise, people will never understand that we are speaking about them here.
I think we do have opportunities, and it's a key point when we look at what will be the sentences included in product information about the additional monitoring scheme and so forth. So we must take every opportunity to do what you're saying, which is to make it clear that the system is there for patients and health professionals, not for the regulator and industry per se. It's outward focused. Other points? Please, Lisa, thank you.
Yeah, it's Lisa Murphy, and I'm so pleased to hear Albert bringing this up, because what it is when we think about the communication of risk, it's sort of really to merge two different cultures. here at EMA, there is a very scientific culture. We talk about evidence-based medicine. We talk about true, very substantial evidence for everything before we communicate. And in civil society, the demands of very prompt communication is strong. There is an expectation of communication, even though if all the deliberations haven't finished. So my concern is for the void, the lack of communication, which might occur before one has delivered, etc., because there's a different time frame that these two cultures operate within. And I've looked briefly at this document and listened, because I mean EMA is to furnish an aid prac with administrative support, scientific support, and then I'm also thinking communicative support, ethics, civil society, political, this arena, which has to be brought into the considerations when we have two so very different cultures that have to merge. I'm thinking about vaccines, for example, how to communicate safely, how to communicate so that patients have a safe source. And this is so essential for us when we need that. So I'm concerned that maybe as of yet, there's not enough support around the prac for these issues.
Well, it's good that these issues are coming to the fore now, and I'm just checking with Dr. Arlott Peter that there will be further opportunities with second wave modules, but you're posing some of the biggest challenges that we face, this bridge between detecting and looking at evidence, quantifying and characterizing risks, and then managing a communication void, as you say, when people want to know what can be known as soon as possible. So there will be various different aspects in the second wave modules, including coordination of safety announcements. But I don't want to seem procedural in responding to you. I think we have to really start this wider debate about bridging these different worlds. When does a signal become a risk? These are the things that the public need and want to understand. We do have the Patient and Consumer Working Party and the Healthcare Professional Working Party, who will also be able to deliberate these. Peter, do you want to add to this?
Well, only to confirm that the last two interventions have been specifically on risk communication or benefit risk communication, and there are going to be specific discussions and draft guidances in these areas. Having said that, the quality systems, as they apply to the different actors, do need to cover all aspects of a pharmacovigilance system, and communication is a key aspect of that. So if we just narrow the discussion onto this specific Good Pharmacovigilance Practice module, I think the question to you, or back to you, is when you have a bit more time to have a look through these, if you feel that the communication aspects are underrepresented in terms of the quality systems, then I think that's a very valid comment to feed back in the public consultation.
It's very interesting that you're looking at some of the bigger and more important things that maybe aren't as fleshed out as you would like to see. And I think looking at documents is always good to ask what isn't there as well as what is there. I think I saw a question towards the back. Thank you, colleague sitting at the back.
Thank you. I'm Gro Lyer from Novo Nordisk, representing FPIA. We have some concerns related to the documentation and retention requirements in this document. And it's not the timelines we're worried about, it's the scope. Most prominently, there is an example where it says retention of pharmacovigilance data and documents related to the authorized medicinal product. It could be understood very, very broad, like including meeting invitations, all sorts of discussions, handwritten comments, etc. And we were hoping it was more like source data for adverse reaction and the outcome of pharmacovigilance activities, signal detection, PSURs, etc.?
Well, that's a very interesting question. It's a detail about the details of the scope of documentation retention, and I'm sure there are analogies for quality systems in other domains. I don't know if Florian is our legal person here today. Do you have any comments to make? There's an element of judgment involved in this.
The purpose of the quality system is, of course, to underpin the pharmacovigilance system, the core pharmacovigilance requirements. So the data to be kept by the company should relate to these pharmacovigilance obligations. And I would say that a meeting invitation is not covered by this scope.
Okay, but taken overall in the process of taking forward a risk assessment, it could be a relevant milestone. So there is always going to be a judgment, but this is about documentation that pertains to pharmacovigilance systems. So interesting to follow this one through. I guess you may have had some experience there from the nature of your question. Other points, comments or questions? Back to our colleague on the left, please.
This is Josie Drebel from IPOPI. It's more of a comment, really. The fact that we had all these modules sent to us quite late last week, and I think it would have been very helpful had we had an overview, just like the one that Suvi has just given us, that condensed it, and it would have made it much easier, I think, to cope with all this documentation in such a short space of time. And also, there was one sentence that actually made me laugh. It's line 528, where it says a QPPV is a natural person. Surely you're not thinking about robots now, are you?
Well, thank you. Your point is well made. I think I indicated earlier in our discussion the enormous effort that this whole initiative has represented, and to tell you how hard the Member States, EMA colleagues and others have worked through iterations, had ad hoc breakouts, involved working parties as needed. So what you see is the product of all of that. It would have been ideal at the end of January. Here we are, it was out on the 21st of February. And at least this meeting today enables, while it's pretty fresh, an orientation to be given and your immediate reactions for us to hear them, which is extremely valuable for us. In terms of natural people, I think that's a legal term of art, isn't it? Florian, do you have natural people in law?
I think at least in the Commission we are only about natural people.
Of course, they're very natural. Yes. It's good sometimes to smile. Thank you.
Maybe just a real quickie. I think it would be useful to have a little explanatory overview of future modules if we can. The original plan had been to circulate draft modules a number of weeks ahead of this meeting, and then to get really detailed feedback. I would imagine broadly half of the people in the room have had a chance to go through at least some of these modules, and another half really haven't. So I think we therefore have a mixed objective today. It's partly just a better understanding, so that when you do read them in more detail, you'll have had a bit of an introduction today. And then for those that have had a chance to have a quick read through, it is to give immediate feedback. So maybe we can use today, if you like, as the introductory session for some of these modules, and then we'll see what we can do for future modules when we go out in June time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or reflections anyone would like to offer? Dr. Arnold Barry.
Thank you very much. I'm not speaking on behalf of FPI. I speak on behalf of myself. I'm actually a qualified person for pharmacovigilance and perfectly natural. What struck me when I read these modules combined was I only came across one instance, and I guess it's relevant to this module because this module is the one that describes the role of the QPPV. But there's only one module where the QPPV actually seems to have to sign something, and that's post-authorization safety study protocols. Maybe there's others that I've missed. But if I have missed them, then clearly it isn't clear within this module just what the bottom line is regarding where's the QPPV required to sign off on something.
Well, one of our objectives, obviously, in all of this is to have clarity on roles and responsibilities. So your point is well taken, and I guess it's clear to all of us here who are from the regulatory side that the obligations for the regulator, the national competent authority, are well expressed too. So we're hoping that colleagues who carry the QPPV role will read these particularly carefully and perhaps produce a synopsis of the areas where, as QPPVs, you would look for additional clarity if it can be provided. Other comments or points? Thank you. Colleague on the left.
Yeah, Isabel Clemworth here. Just very nitty-gritty admin stuff. That the version you sent to us on Tuesday evening have not the same line numbering as those published on your website. So I would just caution colleagues to, when providing their comments, that they refer to the one on the website, which has not the same line numbering as the PDF ones we received on Tuesday evening. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm assuming, Peter, that the preference is for the web numbering, the website version numbering.
That's absolutely right. We sent them out a little bit early to give the people coming here as much time as possible. But if we've got in the PDFing process, I suspect it's had an effect on the line numbering. Please use the references as published. Otherwise, we're going to have a bit of a detective job to try and work out what you're talking about.
Well, we'll be immediately going to line 528, whatever happens. Any other points? Colleague on the right, thank you.
My name is Christine Meyer-Nicolai, working for Merck's Rono and representing Europa Bio today. Maybe now the discussion is the right point in time to ask about involvement of inspectors in the discussion of the modules and how inspectors from national agencies, but also EMA inspectors will deal with this. Any indication on how they will look at all this and digest it and then also inspect for the details?
We've clearly involved the inspectorate colleagues very intensively in preparing this, and Suvi, would you like to give a further comment?
Just very briefly, the EMA coordinates the competent national authorities inspectorates meetings, and those are held 4 times a year here in EMA, and these meetings are dealing with the issues coming from the legislation and the guidance and how this should be interpreted. And actually in the second wave modules there's also module for inspections, and the common understanding how to interpret the guidelines is under discussion at the moment.
So there will be more on that. Any other questions or points anyone would like to raise at this point? If not, I think we can bring this morning's meeting to a closure. The topics we've covered have ranged from the public health challenges, the priorities, through the practicalities of vigilance access policy and PRAC nominations, to the incredibly important topic of transitional arrangements, which needs a lot of thinking through, and also the excellent example with Article 57 of when intense collaboration and interaction can actually deliver a pragmatic way forward.